It was once said that the only thing harder than getting a new idea into the military mind is getting the old idea out. And I think that is important with the nature of some of the things that we should be discussing today. Contestability is good, and it will set the tone for a couple of things I would like to say. Much of the broad issues around nationalism, protectionism, anti-globalisation, etc., have already been said, and I won't repeat them. But I'd like to make 2 points, or I'll end with 2 points. But firstly, I'll put a bit of an Australian perspective around it, and I'll start with a small story. About a decade ago, I attended the Tokyo Defence Forum, and I was there for 3 days, and every presentation that was made had a map, and every map in its southern border ended at the Indonesian archipelago, which meant Australia didn't feature at all. I had a lonely 3 days trying to convince people while I was there. And now I find myself at the end of a 5-speaker presentation, which is why in some reasons we sent a 6-ship deployment called Indo-Pacific Endeavour around the region last year to remind people that we have a part to play, not just in the region, but in a global perspective. It's important we do that because I heard our name mentioned as one of the significant liberal democracies in the area in a presentation about whether liberal democracy would survive into the future. But I'd like to briefly turn to what I think are the strategies, and we've heard most of them already today or in this session, that are in existence and will work. I call them, though, the usual suspects, and that is there is a regional security framework, but we have a plethora of fora. We have symposium, be it the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, be it the Western Pacific Naval Symposium, and I am indeed involved with what possibly might be the creation of something in the South Pacific as well. But there is the ADMM Plus, and there are numerous others. We also have a great emphasis on information sharing, not just white shipping, but grey shipping as well. The detail and depth of each of those things varies depending on which of these fora or symposium you attend. At the same time, we have a multitude of exercises, but I have to say most of them are relatively simple in design and in execution. And lastly, and importantly, we have a significant series of personal exchanges throughout the region. Now, all of those are good things. But I do spread a word of caution here, and I guess to some extent it's in a similar vein to what Admiral Harris was saying earlier. In aggregation, each of these have potential, but also in reality, an abundance of these institutions, organisations and arrangements, poorly managed or not aligned, actually produces a dilution of practical outcomes and is difficult for us to achieve meaningful outcomes for very pragmatic reasons. And it may well be as simple as asking the same nations to send the same ships to so many exercises that they run out of fuel. There is no supra-arrangement that seeks to coordinate or align activity. Now, I'm not proposing here that we develop one, but what I am saying is we need to be cognizant within each of these security or elements of the security framework just how far and where each of these should attend. The other aspect I think is important is to gain that alignment, it should have an alignment of purpose or around a purpose. And here I would recognise and applaud the work that has been done, particularly in India, around the definition and description of the blue economy. It's a statement that shows that this is not only a geopolitical issue, but is broadly effective across the whole of government, across many different nations. And in describing and discussing those broader issues, it puts a true purpose behind why we should seek security in certain elements. And it is not all around a military outcome. And I think where my view of the arrangements for the Quads at the moment, that is the cooperative talks that have already occurred in November last year, was around strengthening those relationships around economics and other areas that are just as important as considering the military side. Now, the strategic challenges that I think we face at the moment, as I've said, it's an abundance of arrangements. In Doing this, though, there is also, I have a view, that there's a lack of hard outcomes. It's the difficult conversations, and again, Admiral Harris raised these. It's about making hard debate. It's about having diplomatic resolve to resolve issues. It's about following through on these issues. And I say this from about 3.5 years' experience as a Chief of Navy, the Australian Navy, having been party to many of these arrangements at the practitioners level. So I think the areas that we have looked at, the strategies are sound. I think there is prospect. I think there is potential for them. But I also spread a caution as to how each of us enter into these arrangements, knowing that there has to be a meaningful outcome and there needs to be a sense of purpose as to why we're describing these.